Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. Today's reading we're doing a bit of a long range view about what's going to change for you in your life and who are you going to be within 3 years time and how does that impact on key areas of your life. So we're going to be using a lot more tarot than usual. I'm going to use 2 decks in each of the readings and the decks are being represented here and I'll get into that when we talk about the pile choice. But really what I'm trying to do with this reading is take a long range sort of practical view about who you are developing into and why that is, what can help you do that, what you can do to course correct if you're not happy with this reading but you feel it's probably true but you're trying to work out how to get unstuck and do something different, whatever those things may be. So the reading will start with a kind of a psychological, energetic overview of you now and you in 3 years time, and that will hopefully firstly help to get a sense of does this feel like it's the right reading that you've chosen, but it may also make you focus more on one or more aspects of what we're going to look at in tarot, because we're going to look at 3 key themes. We're going to look at what you may not see that could block or misdirect you if you do want to end up where the sort of energetic profile suggests that you're going. Spirit's advice to how to maximize any benefits in that. We're also going to ask for advice if you don't want to end up doing that, if you want to do something different or focus on something different, and how the external world might be looking at all of this sort of thing. Then we're going to use some oracle cards to look at it around relationships, lifestyle and career, and then finish off with some astrology and other energy sort of advice to bring it all together. So should be an interesting reading. As I said, we're going to use 2 decks in each reading, and they are the Crystal Unity Tarot and the White Fly Tarot. And what I've done for the choice here, and I must say I have no idea what the cards are under here because I just intuitively pull those before I set up for readings, but what I've tried to do to help with the choice, if you're not someone who automatically goes to a particular number or who just pauses the video and meditates and zones in, if you're sort of someone who sometimes is a little bit torn, what I've tried to do is give a little bit of some extra assistance around that. So I've very consciously chosen the Fool and the World card from each of those 2 decks. And I thought that would represent the fact that over a 3-year period of time, we often do go from something at its beginning through to something in its completion. So there's a sense of that progression for each. And so it might be that if you at the moment are thinking over the next 2 to 3 years that you will be consolidating a career move, a creative project, taking a relationship to the next level, whatever, you may get more drawn to the World piles, for instance. If, however, you're wanting to initiate something new, take a very big different direction, then maybe the Fool. But as I say, that's just if that helps you, because I can't honestly say these readings are going to be about consolidation and these readings are going to be about the new. They could be, but they may not be. I just thought I'd say that as something to help if that does for some people. Of course, you're welcome to go to more than one reading. There may be elements across different things. It may also be that it helps you sort of consolidate what you do and don't want in your future and so forth. So always welcome to go to more than one reading. But once you know which reading you want to go to, or readings, the timestamps as always are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So these cards are an indication of the sort of energetic profile of you now, and these are what you develop into over the next 3 years, and it may give us a bit of a sense about some of the key themes that we'll drill into more with the tarot and what could be happening in your life and what you could be developing into over the next 3 years. And certainly, hopefully this will also help if you were unsure about the reading. If this feels kind of right, then you'll know you've come to the right reading. If not, maybe try another one. So you're very interesting. I do think that most of the people who've come to this, if they've come to the right reading, are people who take on a cause, are people who fight for others, are people who are very emotionally connected to other people, very empathic, very much the sort of people who will take on a cause, deal with bullies, all of that sort of energy. There's something about you, and it looks as though at the moment you have achieved a lot in that space already. You are someone who, if you're in a workplace, you are the person who people come to for support when there is bullying behaviour, for instance. I get that quite strongly, so I think many of you may deal with bullies on some level. You could be a teacher and you deal with it with children in the school yard or something, but there's something like that, or it's some other cause that you've taken on, or it's something that you've done within your family to help people with feelings around what's going on. And because you're so in touch with your own feelings, and you've developed quite a bit of self-esteem around it with Raphael there, and you've been the hero in some way, really stood out with extrovert energy, pushed your energy out. Extrovert is not always the life of the party. You could be, but it's not always that. It's often that you get energy from other people. You go out into the world and energy comes to you from doing that. So this is certainly saying that people with pile 1, there is something where you've taken on the role of the hero, the role of the person who will take on the cause, who will look after others, and that has given you a lot of energy and given you a lot of self-esteem, possibly even helped to heal various wounds that you had for yourself. Raphael is the archangel of healing, amongst other things. It's probably one of the most well-known qualities of Raphael. So you heal others, but you heal your own feelings. So it does look to me like it's the classic sort of energetic profile of someone who maybe was bullied and knows what it feels like. So now is fights against it and helps others move past it. You've understood the empathy and so forth, but you take it out into the world, and people really look up to you for that, and you have self-esteem. And some of your self-esteem with the sun, because Raphael rules over the sun, is about understanding your feelings, the feelings of others, and taking it through to something that is protective in some way. So that could be, and look, it could be in your career. You could be taking on a role in that space, or maybe in that space. As I say, you could be a teacher, you could be someone who works in community services, you could be a political activist, a community organiser, any of those sorts of things, but it could also be around your friends, family, and in general, you could be in a workplace and just do it naturally. People come to you naturally, even if it's not what you're doing as your day-to-day job. But I do think that Raphael is saying here that there is a self-esteem connection for you around that. This role that you do, it's you coming into who you are. There is something about you. It's genuine. Don't feel that, am I getting this sort of like applause and it's all about the applause? It's not. It's actually genuinely who you are. And in doing it, you help other people with self-esteem. So that's sort of where you are at the moment. And it feels like you've achieved quite a bit in that space. And I think it's preparing you for some bigger battle, to be honest. There is a bit of a sort of warrior within you with the warrior here. So I think you go from having proven that you can do this into a bigger battle where you are motivating others to come out of their fear. Now, that battle doesn't have to be that you go off to war. It doesn't have to be that you take on an opponent. With motivation, with Zathkiel here, it could be about teaching others in some way, motivating, coaching others in some way. It's structure, bringing a structure and an understanding and a depth to it with Scorpio. See, this is the emotion. You may well have Scorpio strongly in your chart, or water signs in general, but Scorpio's ability to go to the depths, to face fears, to not be concerned, because Typhus is a sort of monstrous figure that can create fear, but this card is really about moving beyond fear. Understanding it, understanding that the only thing to fear is fear itself. And the warrior in you knows that, motivates others. So I feel that there is a trajectory that you are on, that you've already started, pile 1, which is about helping people really build their self-esteem, get past their fears, get into a more healthy sort of connection with people, get to the depths of what's going on with them, and being prepared to take on the battles, but being motivated to do that. So I think this is very much the imprint of someone who has a kind of coaching, mentoring, teaching, or as I say, potentially political, community, something like that sort of energy to help, but it is to help others. And you've already know that you have the skills to do that. So it doesn't mean that's the only thing that's going to happen in the next 3 years, but what it is saying is that you are coming into your power, you are coming into your life purpose with the self-esteem and helping others with that, and you're bringing it into greater and greater structure. So this could be someone who is in that sort of field of work who's going to be promoted into a leadership role, for instance, over the next 3 years. or someone who takes all your learning and puts it in, writes a book or starts a blog or something and starts to give that structure and that help to others. There's a journey towards a higher level where you move from just being a kind of a hero for a few to being someone who teaches everybody how to be their own inner warrior. So really like the energy of this. So I really think people who come to Pole 1, that's such a nice energy to see, such a necessary energy in this life. So as I said, we're going to use both tarot decks and we're going to go into a bit of detail. So I'm going to start firstly with the Crystal Unity Tarot. I'm choosing that because of the silhouette figures. I think when you're looking 3 years out, you're looking at a lot that's a bit in shadow. And then when we're trying to really highlight things about what to do to course correct or what the external world is, we'll use the White Fly Tarot, which is kind of the opposite. It's very, very colourful, very strong imagery. So let's start first with just laying out some cards for 3 key areas, 3 key themes that either will pick up some of this or are also running at the same time as you're moving into this level of mastery. So okay, so I want to jump to this first. I actually think with these sort of readings, sometimes it can be like different time frames. I don't think it is. I think this may be sort of like just different aspects that are running over a bigger arc of something that you're developing. But down here, when we have these 3 particular cards reversed, the 5 of Pentacles reversed, the 9 of Pentacles reversed, and the 4 of Wands, to me, that is talking about a key theme for you will be working with others, being with others, connecting with others. It may be that part of your healing that you've just gone through that's given you the better self-esteem, that's made you want to come out into the world a bit more with the extrovert, and you've been sort of seen as someone who is a icon of that in some way, or a hero of that, is now urging you to come out of a period where maybe you actually cloistered yourself away a bit more, maybe in the past year or two. And if you're listening to this when it's being filmed, which is in 2022, most of us had to be cloistered a bit away in the last couple of years because of the pandemic. So it just depends when you're listening to this, because this is timeless. But certainly there is a sense of coming out more into the world. If you weren't employed, for instance, or if you had thought about study and you're starting that and now you're going to be in a classroom, whatever it might be, depending upon your age and what you're doing, I feel as though now over this next 3 years, you really are starting to move forward. And the Fool card has come up. So it's definitely saying, even though the overarching theme is you developing to a higher level on something you have already started to master, there are a lot of new things coming in the next 3 years, lots of new adventures and so forth. And I think one of them is about being with others, working with others, or doing something material with others. 9 of Pentacles, when it's the right way up, is often the self-made person, the person who runs their own business, that kind of thing. Even if eventually by 3 years from now, if you wanted to, you could potentially set something up, it looks as though the next 3 years you spend a lot of time with people. And partly that's because you will help people mend fences, deal with conflict, all of those kind of things. You would be an ideal person to go into a workplace and fix up a demotivated group of people, for instance. That's probably why we have that kind of motivation energy. So there's something there where you kind of come out from behind the scenes, and it's to repair issues and to bring the sort of life force back into teams and so forth. One thing I am getting is that if in this period of time you're in an organisation and you've been recognised and you move to a new level, you may have to start to think about, how do I continue my connections with people who are my peers when now I may be their manager? That's always a tricky sort of thing to do. But you, because of the fact that you are so motivational, I think have a better chance of doing this and repairing anything. But there could be, I'm getting for some of you, a little bit of a glitch at some point in this where you move up the ladder and you have to recalibrate that. But in either case, it's saying you're not meant to kind of go into your office and shut the door. Don't withdraw, connect more, because your basic ability to motivate others will mean that is accepted quicker than it sometimes is by peers that you've now moved ahead from. So that to me is a very clear thing. It's a very clear message of the next 3 years is about connecting with others. It's not being sort of on your own. Okay, so here, as I say, there is a sense of something new. There is a new journey that you're starting on. It could be a new job, a promotion, any of those things. Certainly if it's a promotion now, then there's another one within the next 3 years. You're moving up the ladder. And it's after a period of time where you felt that it was delayed. So you're unblocking something in the next 3 years. You felt, in fact, very, very constrained before this for some reason. And maybe that's why you did this sort of work on what your feelings were and what, you know, your self-esteem was. So there's a chance now to break out from that. With the Hanged Man there, it does suggest that sometimes just looking at things differently helps. So it may be that you actually haven't realised that you have actually processed this and you've actually become a bit of a hero in people's eyes. You may not even have a sense of that at the moment. You may have just done it to work out your own sort of self-esteem. Now understanding the impact that this has on others and the way that you can help others could be the thing that starts a new journey, that you just realising that you've done that and that is something very special could be very helpful, I think, for you. Knight of Wands reversed, what I like about that, even though, as I say, I think it picks up a bit with the Hangman, a feeling of being constrained before. The Knight of Wands, when it's the right way up, can be firing and passionate and really wonderful, but it sometimes acts before it thinks. This suggests you would not do that you actually have learnt something from this process. Maybe with the depth of emotional energy of Scorpio over here and also the water nymphs here, maybe sometimes you did. Maybe sometimes you shot from the hip, so to speak, and it was sort of like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that, maybe I shouldn't have done that. You've learnt from that, and there's been a kind of, again, a different way of looking at things that allows you to take a different tack. It may even be that by achieving something, as I say, and being a bit of a hero, you've sort of understood, oh, okay, that's how you deal with this kind of discord and so forth. So I think that's good to temper it at the moment because you're going into something new that you're thinking about differently. So not going too fast is good. If it took you all the 3 years to get to that, that's not bad. That's actually a good time frame. Some of what you're dealing with is injustice, those sort of issues. This is why I've really strongly got dealing with bullying, that kind of behaviour around you. So certainly justice and what is just, what is fair is going to be a big theme for you over the next 3 years. And you want to find people who have the same passion and so forth, but who also have the same set of ethics. I feel like the Queen of Swords here, the Queen of Swords often gets a bit of a bad rap as being cold, but I feel like that's not the case. I feel for you, it's just you creating a kind of philosophical and sort of intellectual structure and a sense of ethics, and doing it in a way that is detached when it needs to be detached, that focuses on what is or isn't just and so forth. You will be, over this next 3 years, finding various people that are the right connection for you, but I do think there's a period of time with these cards here and this connected where you may feel as though, even though you have to connect with people a lot, you're not sure who your tribe and who your people are. And I think it's the stage in the hero's journey, really, where you do, on one hand, have to be with people, but also be alone with people, if that makes sense. It's sort of you have to kind of take that step out into a broader number of people, a broader mission, whatever it is, taking your sense of what is right and wrong with you, finding where things aren't working out, and sorting out where there is discord. And it may sometimes feel lonely, even though you're surrounded by people. But this is saying that you will find your people. And so is this. This is saying that you won't be as alone as you think, but you are going to be a leader in some way around things, you know, in your career, in your family, whatever it might be. If this is around a relationship, then there could be a shift to either a very different way of relating, which becomes that you'd built your self-esteem almost within a relationship and felt a little bit kind of disconnected from it, and you either connect or you move on to something else. Like you've either got to have a cause and be on the same page, or you move on. But either way, again, there's not a sense of loneliness. So if this is picking up a relationship that didn't work and you've now done the healing on that and you're prepared to stand alone, you won't stand alone long, but there could be some residual issues around family stuff that's important, that needs to be worked through in this time period. Okay, so let's ask Spirit firstly. We're going to do 2 more questions using the Crystal Unity Tarot. The first is what you might not see that could either block or misdirect you over this period of time. Okay. There's at least one person around. I don't think this is you. I think this is someone else. So it could be someone that you've been in a relationship with. It could be someone who is, with being a king, somebody who was a manager. Maybe you're now reaching the same level as them and they're not too pleased about it because they're competitive. There's somebody who is not really to be relied on, but they are unhappy around you. They're kind of always unhappy around you, actually. And I don't think it's necessarily you that makes them unhappy, though it could be. If they're jealous of you taking on this role and becoming more and more seen, they may be someone who saw themselves like that, but they don't have the wherewithal to do it with this reversed. But it's like someone who is an emotional drain. They're always unhappy. They're always discontented. They're always mourning what didn't happen. I'm getting for some of you, whether or not it's connected to the other broader stuff, for some of you, it may be that there's someone in your life who just keeps coming and going and demanding from you because you gave them some sort of supply that helped their self-esteem, but then they go away and they're not happy and they can't do it and they come back. This could be a friend, it could be a love relationship, it could be anything, but it is something that could take your energy away. I think you're aware of it, so I don't think it's someone you don't know or something you don't see. So I think it's more about what could misdirect you or could delay you in some way. It is important to understand the pattern that this person represents because they're not taking responsibility for themselves. So the thing about you, what you do and what you show for others is how to build your self-esteem, their self-esteem, to take on the role of the hero, to take on the role of the actor. This person doesn't want that. This person wants to be constantly rescued and they're constantly whinging, to be frank. So I think it's just Spirit saying don't put too much energy into this person. They've got to learn how to turn the King of the Pentacles around for themselves. And they're never going to be grateful. They're going to always be a little bit jealous of you at the same time and resentful. So there's just an energy. There's someone around you. So don't let that use too much of your energy, pile one. So let's ask how Spirit would suggest you can maximize the benefits of this next 3 years, because I think there is a lot. I think you're going to move forward significantly and get a larger sort of frame for whatever you do. So let's ask for Spirit's advice on maximizing that. Okay, Spirit's really obsessed with this person. I really want to talk. Sometimes this happens, I find, with tarot. You might have a question you're asking, but it's just more interested in talking about what it was talking about before. So there's definitely, this is just a confirmation that it's both a sort of material thing and an emotional thing. They're an emotional quagmire, actually, by the looks of things. And they play power games. You need to make a decision about this. I think that's what they're saying, that there's something where you are carrying someone, you're looking after someone, you feel maybe that you are committed in some way to them, in whatever form it is, or they have had some sort of authority over you in some way. But you need to make a decision about putting some boundaries around this person, because underneath everything, they're sapping some of your energy. And you're meant to really sort of accelerate what you're doing at the moment. But they're always there. I think it's a very strong jealousy energy I get, interestingly, even though there isn't Wands energy there. But I think the King of Cups reversed with the King of Pentacles, you are creating in yourself the true King of Cups and the true King of Pentacles. And this person is a wannabe. This person wants to be you and gets really upset that they're not. And they try and control you, but it's very emotionally controlling. And there is a connection, like it's, like it's a family member, it's a lover, it's a close friend. There's somebody like that. And Spirit's just saying that's the one thing that could slow you down. So don't let that happen. Okay, so Spirit, we got the message. Let's move to the other tarot deck. And let's sort of say, if there's anything in this future, sort of the sense, as I say, of moving towards potentially being a leader, a coach, a mentor, somebody who takes people forward in a cause or whatever, if there's something that you don't want around all of this or something that you would want to minimize, what is Spirit's advice in that space? So we're now moving to the White Fly Tarot for some advice on minimizing anything you don't want out of this projection over the next 3 years. Okay, Spirit says, yes, Helen, you might say that we've got the answer, but it's all connected, and this is the really key point, because this is you now. See, remember I said I felt like you represent the true King of Pentacles, the self-made person, the person who actually can make money, can be a leader, can manifest. Something, you're going to hear something with the High Priestess reversed about how much this energy has impacted on you. So what Spirit is saying is that the only real piece of advice, and Spirit's pretty positive about the next 3 years for you, it's just this particular issue. So do not suppress that information when it comes through. There's something about this relationship. It's like it is maybe someone that you're in a love relationship with, or it's someone who you have a lot of feeling and connection for, and you are a very feeling sort of person, you know, you operate from your feelings. It's hard for you to see that this is the case, but Spirit is saying something is going to come out. You're going to see it. And whether it's even just seeing a reading like this, or whether it's that you're going to hear some information, you'll realize this person is, you know, not necessarily trash talking you, but is not recognizing what you're doing and is not listening to what you're saying. So Spirit says, look, the only thing really to do is to not let that energy happen. And I'm actually getting, if part of you, when you first heard this, you thought, I can see this is true. I do kind of, you know, build self-esteem in myself and others, and I can see that I could be a warrior, but you know what? I really don't want to be a warrior. Then this may be saying that one of the things to think about is, how do you have a value in it for yourself? And so it could be eventually, even though I said over the next 3 years you're going to be dealing with a lot of people, you're more likely to be in an organisation than running one. Spirit may be saying one of the choices might be to accelerate running your own business, doing something where it's not about being a warrior, it's about being a motivator. And so like move towards what you want from that, if the idea of being in battles all the time is not what you want. But either way, Spirit says information is going to come to you that allows you to work out how to best unlock the Ace of Wands there and turn it around so that you can take your own passion towards things into what you want. So I do get a sense that for some of you, if this is in career, there could be a bit of a hard slog over the next 3 years where you are, you know, fighting battles and leveling up and getting into that sort of leadership role and so forth. And that may kind of make you feel a bit exhausted, or it may sort of dim some of your creativity. Spirit is saying thinking maybe about the long game and what you could do in your own business or something with this may also be how you can course correct it if you want to. Okay, so let's also ask what in the external world is particularly impacting you over this period of time. Okay, so this is very interesting actually, because it puts another sort of slant on some of this. So I've been feeling very much that it's sort of like someone, as I say, who goes into career, motivation, political causes, community, whatever. Some of you might also be around the money markets. And some of what your self-esteem and so forth may have been is that you've actually really worked out how to manage the money markets, how to manage investments in some way, and you really come into your own in the next 3 years, and you come to the point where people actually think, my God, they're brave, but gee, they seem to really get it. They seem to really be able to manage that kind of energy, because this is a card of investment, and this is a card of investment at speed together, the two together. And then the Hierophant says something unconventional. Some of you may find the external world comes to you for a spark of genius around investment, how to invest in some way. Or it could be saying your unconventional ways of doing things and managing, balancing what might be conflict becomes something where there are offers that come to you about investment. And this may be also picking up, there may be in the next 3 years a choice that you'll need to make about, is there an offer here to maybe go into business partnership? And I think it's okay if you do it. I just think that there's a period of time where it's got to be with more people than maybe you have been in the past. So that's interesting. Some of you, there is a business thing or a financial markets thing or something like that. So let's get a little bit more detail from the now to 3 years from now on the 3 aspects of your life. So on relationships, on career, and on lifestyle. So we're going to use the Heart Code Oracles, 1 card for each, just to see the energies around these that you can navigate, leverage, use, and so forth. Pile 1. So around relationship, now we have chance, and later we have distractions. Okay, so I do think what Spirit was banging on about with this person is realizing how much distractions could get in your way. It may in fact even be Spirit saying this person you don't even know yet for some of you. But as you move closer to the 3 years from now, you'll come across this person. Pay attention to the person who's draining you. It's never enough. They never listen, that kind of thing, because it's a distraction. That relationship is drawing you away from who you are. Here it suggests there is the chance for a good relationship, or you've just come across a relationship that's good. Being open to that is good. You've done the work that you need to do to feel happy with that. And I think if that's the case, that it really isn't saying that the drain is in a romantic relationship. It's in some other relationship, and maybe one that's coming into the future. But certainly you can see now also potentially the chance for a relationship, which is good because this energy around you is to be more with people than you have been. But later on, one person at least, and possibly more generally, may be distracting you from what you're trying to do. So let's have a look at what the career energy is telling us. So for now, we have caution. And for 3 years from now, investor. Yeah, there's something. This is confirming this sort of feeling. There's something coming through for you business-wise where an investor, somebody with money, or your capacity to invest in some way, and whatever this is really going to pay off. But at the moment you're being careful. And I think Spirit is saying that's the right thing to do. You've had some early wins in whatever this is, but you've got a much bigger vista to go towards, and having some caution about the choices that you do, the places that you work, the way that you use your career energy, I think is wise at this point in time. You will start to head towards this when you get that sense with Scorpio, when the feelings become that scorpionic sort of forensic understanding. So over the next 3 years, you will move from feeling fairly conservative, I think, and maybe working in an organisation, to potentially your own business or investing in something and so forth. So that's interesting. So let's have a look at lifestyle. So we've got pattern now, and we've got solution. Okay. So you, in a sense, are your own work in progress, and you are the example to others that will eventually, I think, be a career thing or an investment thing or something like that for you. At the moment, you're really working at the patterns that are around you, your patterns in your life and the patterns that you see around you. It's going to become something, Pile 1. It's going to become how you help others, how you help yourself at higher levels. But it's also, I think, showing with the Hanged Man at the beginning and the Knight of Wands that you are using routines as a way to manage the energy around you. And I think that's actually really positive. Do have routines. Have a health routine, an exercise routine, make sure you get lots of sleep, all of that sort of thing, because there's a lot of energy around you. You don't want it to dissipate. You've got a big journey ahead with the Fool. You've got an idea. You've got an eye on the prize. Get the patterns that support you. Pick up this King of Pentacles energy, this sort of like sense of some stability and consistency, because there is a big journey that you're going on. And by the time you get to 3 years from now, you've got the solution on it. You've got something to market, I think. I think you've got something that you've worked out that others would want to invest in and understand. They see that you are walking the talk. You have actually achieved what you want. People talk a lot about manifestation on spiritual channels, but haven't necessarily manifested a lot. And I'm not putting any shade on anybody, but people talk a lot about the process of manifestation. What I think will happen with you is that you will be a living proof of something like that. So that's very, very positive for you over the next 3 years. Let's finish off with a couple of things just to bring it together. Well, first of all, look at some key astrological energy around you for the next 3 years, and then I'm going to use the crystal chakra cards just for a couple of affirmations to close out the reading. So firstly, some astrology energy over the next 3 years for you. Okay, we have conjunction, so we'll have a look at what planets are involved there. 10th house, yeah, a lot of this is around career and who you are in the world. South node, and moving away from patterns that didn't help you, and I think some of that was being almost a bit hermit-like. and wane and give us the calm after the storm. So there's some of this journey, because we got hero and warrior, does have a battle in it, but I think you're more than equipped for the battle. And there's something really wonderful, a solution and an investment once you get after the storm. So this is definitely saying you're moving away from patterns of being into something new. That's why we got the Fool. But you've achieved something that's given you the confidence to do that. It is going to make you seen in your world, whatever that means to you, whether that is the world of the career, whether it's the world stage, or whether it's seen just in your community. There is something that will make you seen with this, and you will be able to help others pass the storm of change. Conjunction can be a positive or a negative in a way, depending upon what planets we're looking at, as to whether it makes something very easy or whether it shows some of the tension you need to do. So I'm just going to deal out cards until I get to planets. The Sun. So it's very much about your life path, what's happening, and that's sort of why we had Raphael with the Sun right there where you are at the moment. And Chiron. Okay. All right. So this actually makes a lot of sense. The self-esteem, the feelings, the Scorpio, the warrior when necessary, the hero. There's something in what you're doing. I mean, it's really interesting because, and it may depend on who's coming to this reading, but there's one line of this that feels like it's in this very material business world, and it's about being a leader and so forth, and all the investment and so forth. And the other, it feels as though it is in motivation, helping people heal, therapies and so forth. Either way, the only thing that you need to be aware of is that your deep need to heal yourself and heal others is part of your life path. And I think the reason that most of the time that's going to be making all of this work really well for you, it means you're on the right trajectory. But when you come across that person that showed up who is an endless source of grievance, unhappiness and being stuck, you do need to make sure the Sun rules rather than Chiron, because you may try and heal too much. You may get stuck. That's why Spirit wanted to bang on about it, because you're a naturally sympathetic person and you want to save everybody. But some people don't want to be saved, no matter what they say. Okay, so let's finish up with a last couple of cards from the Crystal Chakra deck to get some affirmation and chakra energy for you over the next 3 years, pile one. So we have the heart chakra and the third eye. So yes, it's all about connection, love with others. You know, this is a period of time. I do think that you are moving more and more into connection with others, having healed something in yourself. You can then take that forward and make it part of your life path. With the heart chakra here, we have Bloodstone, which is about flexibility and patience. The affirmations for the next 3 years for you are, I practice patience. So that's going back to the Hangman. Things may take a bit of time, but that's okay. You're heading in the right direction. And I am flexible. Again, the Hanged Man needs to become flexible, needs to think about the different ways of doing things. So, and it will be also flexible about not over supporting people who, as I say, are an emotional drain. Third eye chakra will mean that you have a very strong psychic connection with people and have a really good instinct for this. This particular card has labradorite connected to the third eye, so that's about transformation and synchronicity. The affirmations are, I understand the significance of synchronicities. So yes, watch out for signs. That's part of this High Priestess reverse. There are going to be, the universe spirit is going to be sending you information so that you know when and how to act. And the other one is, I am always transforming spiritually. So yes, always make sure that this has to do with this Queen of Swords. I think for you, your spiritual connections and understanding have a very strong philosophical basis to them, and they're very much about rectifying injustice. So keep transforming to make that better and purer and more something that you can align with and other people can align with, because this is part of the solution you're going to find, pile one. So very interesting next 3 years. I'd be fascinated to hear 3 years from now what's occurred, because I think you're going to bring some really interesting things into the world. I hope you enjoyed the reading. I hope it resonated for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So this is the overarching theme of the shift from now to 3 years from now for you that will hopefully help you work out whether you're in the right reading, and which will give us a sort of foundation for looking at some of the key themes and drilling into more detail. You're a very interesting mix of worldly power, knowledge and ability, and I think significant success over the next few years, and a really strong spiritual, mystical basis. You're the sort of person who is likely to rise to something like a CEO, doesn't have to be literally as high as that, or start your own business or something like that in this period of time, and be very much self-directed, self-starter, all of that sort of thing, very materially adept. But you're also the sort of person who, if it isn't about something that is a cause that matters to you, something that you believe in on a spiritual level, you like to be quite disgusted by what you see. So this could be going into the belly of the beast and finding the way through. It could also be that you move from a very strong manifestation and clarity as to who you want to be and how you want to be in the world and what you think the powers of the world should be, or money, or whatever it might be, into then manifesting that in a very strong way that maybe is a bit of a signpost for others. Now, the reason I say that is, firstly, over here where you are at the moment, we have the Magician. You're a highly skillful person. Whatever you do, you're highly skillful. You may well be someone at the moment who is finishing study and done very well and about to take those skills out, or you could be someone who is further along in a career, for instance. You're really good at what you do and you want to move up the level, and this certainly would suggest in the next 3 years that you can move up significantly within an organisation if that's what you're doing, or, as I say, potentially start your own business. That's another possibility. And you've got an idea of it now. You've kind of got to where you are through looking after others, through following your spiritual path, through doing what matters to you. And as I say, I mean, this sort of like, it's really interesting. You have the mystic over here, the knight, and then the magician. It feels very alchemical. It feels like you really do connect your spiritual being to what you want to manifest in the world. It's not just, I want $1 million in my bank account. It's, I want to look at the redistribution of wealth in the world so that people aren't in poverty, or something like that. It's a higher order basis and calling to what you do and the skill to do it. And for that reason, with Sandalphon here, who looks over earth and the manifest world, calling for prayer, and Tyche, which is effectively Fortuna, is the goddess of fortune. This card comes up when you're about to have success, or you've just had success. You can call upon Tyche for fortune through prayer, because you are very, very spiritually connected. You are connected to archangels, you're connected to deities, your spiritual team's very strong, and you are very skilled. You have that ability. Some of you may indeed be people who do high magic, angel magic, that kind of thing, with this sort of energy, and particularly with where it's heading. But you are able to access some fortune now, which is going to set you up for a very big step up in whatever you do in 3 years' time. But in 3 years' time, you've also developed even further your spiritual studies, so it's part of who you are. But I think you're going to be in a position where you have power, you have authority, and you are very clear with Artemis about that. But you may be dealing with something you don't like, because Zadkiel is here with Jupiter. The fortune that you have is calling upon you also to consider things with some degree of forgiveness. And Artemis can be a bit unforgiving because she's like the light of the sun. She sees the truth. So I feel that in 3 years' time, you will be in some sort of a role or in some part of your life where you have a significant amount of authority, and you're bringing a spiritual authority to that. But there may be something that you need to temper between, as I say, almost a disgust of some of the material world, for instance, with forgiveness and understanding, bringing Artemis's intelligence into forgiveness, because it's partly that really strong mystical side of you that has taken you here. But then you are, as I say, it's almost like you're in the belly of the beast, and it's really trying to work out, well, who's around me who in fact has just been, kind of taken in the wrong direction because of the ways of the world. Who can I forgive and bring with me, and who who is lost to the beast system or something like that. So there's that sort of feeling around you, which is really, really interesting. And it doesn't really matter, as I say, you could have just finished studying and you could just move very rapidly into a position of sort of a manager or something like that. But there is something very alchemical about you, something very true manifestation. But you do it for a spiritual reason. You would find spirituality that's just about making money or whatever kind of quite disgusting. And I definitely think, you know, if you went into big corporate organizations and you went up the ladder and you saw some of what happens, your sense is going to cause a little bit of a, you know, can I continue with this, or can I forgive some of it? Can I shift it or not? So there's an interesting challenge for you in 3 years' time based on how far you rise. Very interesting. So let's use the tarot now. So we're firstly going to use the Crystal Unity Tarot to ask about 3 key themes that are going to happen over the next 3 years that may pick up this or maybe additional things that Spirit wants to talk about. Then we're going to ask about what you might not see that is important Spirit thinks you should see, and also about how to maximize the benefits before we move to the other deck for a couple of other questions. So firstly, the 3 key themes over the next 3 years. Okay, I think this is picking up this feeling of spiritual disconnect. I will get to that, like that you will be facing as you rise up the ladder. I think there's 2 other things that are being talked about here as well too. So we are getting 3 different things. They all contribute to this overarching theme, but they are different. Over here, there is good fortune. This is showing that whether it's already happened, if it hasn't, it's about to happen, because it's more in this first year kind of energy, where you can lay down some of your burdens and be recognised for what you've done. This is the fortune. This is you bringing that in. But Spirit is saying not everybody is going to celebrate with you. So there may be a bit of jealousy around you. There may be people who think you could be leaving them behind, which may or may not be the truth, but there is something there. And with some of the energy over here, it may even be with a partner, and I'm thinking more of a love partner than a business partner. So there's some you rising, you working it out, getting the sort of keys to the kingdom, so to speak, and being recognised seems to have some emotional fallout. So I think Spirit just wants to sort of say you're heading in the right direction, but some people will be a bit jealous. You know, there could be some emotion. You may be a little bit dismayed to see that some people are not as happy for your happiness as you would be for theirs, for instance. And as a result over here, there does appear to be some soul searching about a relationship. It's either soul searching about having had patterns of relationships so you weren't with people, and that's possible with this kind of energy that you kind of put that to the side and relationships to the side, and you kind of didn't look at it, and then that would mean that possibly a relationship is coming in that could be good for you over the next 3 years. Or it could be also that you're leaving behind a relationship to bring in one that's more in balance with you. So I do think, and I'll get to this in a minute, I do think for pile 2, part of the next 3 years is you sorting out who's truly part of your spiritual tribe, your belief structure, and who appeared maybe to be that, or were with you and part of the rise but don't have different motives to you. And it could be a love partner, it could be a work partner, it could be anything. But I feel there's a new relationship coming through for you, and whether or not it is leaving behind loneliness to go into that, or whether it's leaving behind relationships that weren't nourishing and establishing that. Part of what you're doing in the next 3 years, pile 2, is establishing what matters to you, because you're going to, I think, rise in the sort of material world, and that's going to bring you a little bit of a crisis about what are the costs of that, and what am I prepared to do, and so forth, and what can I forgive and understand, and what do I really just need to get out of my life. And I think there's a little bit of a similar thing around relationships as well, really sorting out what that means to you. Down here is around where there is going to be people in either area of your life, but I think particularly around your career, excuse me, where there is a bit of a disconnect with your spirituality. With the High Priestess reversed, it feels like energy of a much more material nature, a much more sort of earthy nature rather than the spiritual. So you are going to be coming across and have debates with or communication with or have to be connected with in some way people who they just wouldn't get it. They think, what are you banging on about? If you talk about having some sort of moral, spiritual principles. If you said, I don't like the idea that we have to lay off, 10,000 people so that, the board can get their bonus this year, they would be going, what are you talking about? This is just business. It's that sort of energy. So, and that's just an example. It could be anything, but I do think over the next 3 years, you are starting to uncover the differences in philosophy and so forth, and the differences and that the fact that there are many people around you who do not come from the heart. You come from the heart and you've presumed that everybody else does, but there's a lot of people around you who don't. There's a lot, and this doesn't surprise me with CEO there. You are a fish out of water to some degree in some of the sort of career or sort of power structures that you're around, because it's like you go in with a heart and you're sort of the knight, the person who's going in with the wonderful cause, and you're the mystic connecting to the divine, but you're around people who are very, very material, very, very much of this earth, and as I say, of the beast system. So there's some things to sort out there. You can still succeed, and in some cases, as Zadkiel was saying, you can see that people were just kind of trained into that, and you can bring them along with you. That's going to be one of the things where the wisdom of Artemis is important for you, so that you don't throw everybody out, because some of them are salvageable, but you have that discernment to be able to work out how to make it work. Okay, so let's ask what you may not see that could block or misdirect you. So one of the things you may not see, and this is a bit specific, so it'll depend on who comes to this reading, is I do think there's a potential of a new relationship. And it's with someone who I think would be much more aligned with your values and so forth, and have a similar sort of level of charisma, because you have quite a bit of charisma. So there's a potential meeting of equals here, but it's in the midst of a lot of battles. So Spirit is saying, keep an eye out for that. There will be someone, and I think it probably is with the Ten of Cups reverse here. It's saying if you don't see it, you lose this really wonderful emotional opportunity. There will be someone in the midst of some of your battles who in fact is more in line with you. This is why I think we had Zadkiel. This is why we had Artemis. It's like balancing that kind of judgment thing of Artemis with Zadkiel's forgiveness. So it may well be someone that you come across in one area of your career or whatever this energy is about who seems very strong, and at first you may think they're part of what you're battling, but I suspect whether it's a love relationship or whether it's just a very good friendship and business partnership, there's something that Spirit says that if you don't see this, some of the promise of what you could have, particularly around happiness, could be lost. So don't judge too quickly. You will be right that you're surrounded by quite a few sociopaths, but there's going to be someone who isn't, that's in it, and be aware of that. Okay, so let's ask Spirit's advice for how to maximize the benefits of this growth over the next 3 years. Okay, so some of your spiritual quest, pile 2, some of your attitude about you should be able to do things materially, manifest and everything, but it shouldn't be about the monetary outcomes. It should be about something higher, is something that was trained into you from childhood. And it was either trained into you by that was the beliefs of the people around you, or the exact opposite. I'm getting that for some of you, you may have come from very materially oriented families, and part of this is around a rebellion. And so what Spirit is saying that would help you maximize is not have as negative a view on just the material. There's a balance here. This again is why Zadkiel and Artemis. It's like that we are here in a material world. We can't be ascetic, and well, most of us can't be ascetic and live on top of the mountain and contemplate our navel. And there is something in your life path that is about in the material world. So don't feel as detached from it. There's something, either, as I say, principles that you were brought up with, or the opposite, that is actually making you be a little bit too judgmental about that as you rise up the ladder. There are good people in the midst of all the battle. And if you get that balance right between the forgiveness and the judgment, that's going to work a lot better for you. You could actually step out of your potential to be a leader and run your own business or whatever it is if you eschew the value of that too much. Remember, you have this alchemical manifestation ability. It doesn't follow that somebody who is, say, very wealthy or powerful is necessarily of the dark or the beast. They could, in fact, be like you. And I think that's the thing Spirit wants you to think about. Okay, so let's use the other deck. And let's ask firstly, what Spirit's advice is if when you look at this, you think that's the last area that I want to end up in, or I can get some of it, but there's some that I really don't want. So it's really just any advice around how you could course correct. Then we're going to ask about what external factors are impacting on all of this. So firstly, Spirit's advice if you want to course correct in any particular way. Okay, so Spirit is saying here that either way, you are going to end up with some degree of authority. You can choose what type of authority that is, I guess. That's one of the things. If you think the last thing I want to be is a CEO of a company or whatever, then that's not necessarily where to find your authority. What Spirit is saying is, however, your degree of skill will bring something like that to you, so you can choose what, and you can choose it pragmatically. Don't be too idealistic, is what Spirit's saying. It's happening, it's coming up over and over. You can be at peace with and find your direction without throwing out all of the options that you have. So it could be sort of someone who says, look, yeah, I can see that I could manifest and I could do all of that and I could end up being a CEO of a company, but I'll choose to do it in a not-for-profit, because I want to do something that is a cause that is close to my heart, or I'll build in some philanthropy within it. There is a way of doing it, and you don't have to, as I say, it doesn't have to be being a leader of a company. It's just an example. But you are a natural leader. I think Spirit is saying whatever happens, that's coming. You can't really course correct from that, but pragmatically you can decide how to do it, the environment to do it in, where you want to put your leadership. All right, so let's also ask how the external world is impacting on you, pile 2. Over this period of time. That's interesting. That came up in another reading. Okay. One of the things that is happening in the external world, I think, and whether this is in like the career energies of this or relationships or whatever, is that where the best investment is and where the money is and where the manifestation is changing. There's a resistance to the change at the moment, but it's changing. Like I'm getting really strongly like someone who's in a business here, this is just an example, that is around financial markets with all the sort of pentacle energy here. And it's the shift to some sort of new world currency or some different way around that. And it's slow, and there's the world itself kind of is trying to do checks and balances on that to make it occur. But there is some unlearning going on. The world is unraveling assumptions. While all this is happening, unraveling assumptions about money, business, and how it operates to bring new ways of building. And so you have the potential, because of your alchemical skill, in whatever form this is, as I say, it doesn't have to be money markets, it's just an example, to see the change ahead of other people and make the decision ahead of other people, because the external world is heading towards it, but they're a little bit slower. It's like you're ahead of the pack, which is very interesting. Okay, so let's drill into a little bit more detail around specific aspects of your life. So we're going to use the Heart Code Oracles. We're going to do a now and a 3 years from now around relationship, then career, then lifestyle. So firstly, around relationship for you, pile 2. Right now, letting go. Okay. Moving to bystander. Okay, I think that there is a little bit of a warning here for you, pile 2. I think that Spirit, hang on, I'm just going to get the camera a little bit more aligned. Okay. I think Spirit is saying at the moment you are letting go of that which isn't working, and that's probably good. If there are people at the moment around you who are not on the page with you, you could let go. But don't do it to such an extent that you become a bystander in your own relationship life. Don't become Artemis, really. Artemis is wise and brilliant, but she was pretty chilly when it came to relationships. You really do need to balance that, because otherwise you'll become a bystander in your own relationships as opposed to being fully within them. And I think there is a real opportunity for a wonderful relationship. It's just, it probably comes in an environment or in a way that wouldn't be something you'd naturally just align to. It's something you've got to look at from a different perspective. Okay, so let's have a look at career energy now and 3 years from now. So career has change. 3 years from now, self-worth. Yeah, career is going to go through a lot of change. You're already starting. As I say, if it hasn't already happened, then you're about to have some sort of promotion, rise in fortunes or whatever. You pray to Fortuna, you pray to Sandalphon, you pray to the divine, or whatever you pray to. That brings that energy in, because you do have that ability. So change is happening, and that's preparing you towards being what you really want with self-worth. I think it's nice that you've got self-worth there too, because I think even if you do go into the belly of the beast, as I think many of you will, I think Spirit is saying that you're going to be fine with that. You will retain your self-worth. The only risk for you is whether you become too isolated, whether you, as I say, become a bystander in relationships around you. And that's also a warning for anybody who could become a workaholic, even in relationships that are good. So you need to sort of balance what's coming for your self-worth with the relationship energy as well. Okay, so let's see how it's impacting lifestyle. So at the moment we have pattern. That's interesting. That came up for another one too. Some of you may have come to the two readings. And then mirror. All right. So this is saying there are patterns to watch in your lifestyle at the moment, both positive and negative. It is saying be aware of those things. Some of those patterns are what gives you your power and will take you forward. Some, particularly judgment, may limit what you see. And this is where mirror is important. It's like, be careful that you're not almost mirroring and pushing away energy because you've made an assumption that everything is the same thing. Oh, I've seen this pattern before, and this is what it means. There is something or someone that is different over this period of time, and possibly more than one, but I think there's one very significant person. So don't almost get a little bit lazy in the judgment and just mirror everything out and presume everybody is one type of thing, because remember, you've actually succeeded in this, and there can be other people like you. In fact, there can be the mirror of you. There can be others exactly like you. All right, so let's finish off with some astrology energy over the next 3 years, and then we'll close out with some crystal chakra affirmation advice. So firstly, some astrological energy for you over the next 3 years that takes you to this point. Venus, Saturn, 8th house, wow, Mutable, yeah. This is, Spirit really wants to talk to you about a relationship. It's either a relationship that you're in that you need to be more flexible with and rethink and so forth, or it could be, as I say, for many of you, something that's coming in that you at first you may judge at first with Saturn there. You might kind of limit at first. But love is important, because ultimately your sense of values comes from love. But it doesn't mean that you have to stand above it. This very much has a feeling of someone who could take the risk of pushing away all emotional energy and stay in that sort of spiritual monastic sort of way of being, as a way to deal with the powers that be that you're dealing with. But Saturn here, like, don't let that be limited. Don't let Saturn limit it. Let it bring into structure. The 8th house is talking about deep intimacy, deep connection. And you need to be mutable to bring that in. So I do think that Spirit is very clear on this, that you have such ability and you're going to really reap the benefits of that, but don't use it to isolate yourself. Okay, so let's have a look at finishing the reading with a couple of crystal chakra cards as affirmation energy that Spirit wants to bring to you over this period of time. Throat chakra, so communication. Throat chakra, communication. I think that's partly what's going to make you who you're going to be, and that's a magician. It feels like Mercury and that kind of level. But it's also what is necessary to make sure that you make the right judgments. So This first one has aquamarine, which is about sensitivity and closure. The affirmations are, I create my own closure. So this is the letting go of what isn't working. And I honor my sensitivity. Yes, don't feel you have to, like, I feel almost like you feel you're going to be in an environment increasingly where you have to hide it, but don't hide it from those where there could be love. Then the throat chakra over here with Celestite is about divinity and wisdom. I am wise beyond my years and I see divinity in all things. Sorry, I just stopped the recording there because of the beeping. I don't know if you could hear it, but it stopped now. It was just a truck backing up outside. So this is talking about divinity in all things and your wisdom, and you are very, very well developed in all of this. Don't doubt that, but you do need to also have the sensitivity and connection to love. It's a very strong message overall. It says you have a real trajectory of growth in the world over the next 3 years, but you have to temper some of your sort of very strong spiritual sort of beliefs with understanding and forgiving those who maybe were not on the same path but potentially could join you on the path, and particularly where love may be involved. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 2. I hope it's helpful and you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe, and if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So these cards are around where you are now. These cards are you 3 years from now. And this is a very interesting set of cards, I have to say, because the first thing I would say is that you in 3 years' time is going to be so different, or you will be on such a different and new path than what you are now, that it would almost be impossible to recognize it now. And it's because you have brought something to a closure. You're at a point where you're really consolidating something here. You've already been through a transformation. I think your life is about transformation. I think a very strong symbol for you should be a butterfly, but a kind of eternal butterfly that continually evolves and changes. And part of that is because you are very sort of highly spiritually attuned. But you're also very much part of this earth, because Metatron comes from Keter, so the highest point of the tree of life, and is the scribe of God, the scribe of the divine, but is connected back to Malkuth and so forth. And also in this particular thing talks about the energy of grounding as well, because of the earth energy there. So there's something about nature and the earth at the moment, but where you're going to, we've got Uranus, which is effectively like Uranus. So it's that kind of sense of remoteness, and we've got the child. So I'll get to this in a minute, but this is why I feel like you become something very different. Right now, with Virgo, that is a kind of grounded, earthy energy that understands the details of its life, has gone through the transformation, is comfortable with that, very, very comfortable with your nature, and very comfortable with your sensuality. I think for many of you, there's been a kind of a breakthrough recently, and you've really started to like who you are, particularly in terms of how you are materially in the world and physically in the world and in love in the world and that kind of thing. There's been a kind of transformation, a change. For some of you, there may literally have been a transformation on a physical level. You could have gone through gender reassignment. You could have gone through plastic surgery. You could have gone through anything. For some of you, the transformation is very literal. For others, it is more that you have come to love who you are, understand who you are, value who you are. And I apologize if you hear the barking of the dogs outside. I think that just might be spirit, and very natural things saying yes, and sort of saying to you, yes, that is actually a really good thing. So you are very comfortable now with who you are, with nature. You may be someone who works with nature, the environment, or something in that sort of area, or as I say, this may be much more about your loving nature, the physical nature. Whatever it is, what you have brought into being, the sort of journey you've been on, as you've gone on a journey of the Fool to the world in a way around all of this, you've brought that into being. And you wouldn't normally see these sort of cards if it hadn't been a bit difficult. Like there might have been something that you felt was different about you. There might have been something that you felt needed to be changed. That's why we've got this transformation. But it looks as though you're at a point now where you are happier with that. Or at the very least, you've made the decision to do it. You've accepted to do that, and you're going to make that change over this period of time. The thing that's interesting, however, is 3 years from now, we get to alchemy, which is this is the transformation of self. Alchemy with Camael to me feels like the energy taking that forward into the world in some way. There's something about what you do around yourself at the moment, which eventually will be going out into the world in a much more powerful way. And it's something that seems very remote and different from you now. Doesn't mean you're going to change this. It's just that the journey of going through this and having done it successfully, there will be something else that comes up, probably spiritually, but it could also be career. It could be anything. It will be very interesting to see what the cards say. That means that you make an even more profound shift, and one that is good with alchemy there, and one that gives you more direction and more outward energy. This feels like inward energy to ground yourself and become who you are. This is taking something out into the world, and you bring to the world a really interesting energy of an old soul, and you're definitely that. I mean, like, you would not be able to do this sort of stuff without that, but also with the sort of innocence and the newness of the child. So it's like you have got to something, as I say, you've got to the world in a way, and you consolidate that more, and then over the space of the next 3 years, you move into something that at the moment would almost be impossible to predict. But we will see what tarot will tell us to see if we can work out the areas of your life it might be in. But you go forward again with the sort of innocence of the child, with the optimism of the child, but with the wisdom of having gone through this and knowing that you can actually make the alchemy work. So it's really interesting energy. So let's see if Spirit may not be all that clear about this given the remoteness card here, but we'll see what Spirit will give us. So we're going to start firstly with the tarot, looking at 3 key themes over this period of time, because a lot's going to happen over the next 3 years with you. But it's happening because you have become really grounded within yourself. It's you have the right springboard now for whatever this is, but it could be in any area of your life. So let's just see what Spirit wants to say about 3 key themes over the next 3 years for you. Okay, so there's a few things that are jumping out here. The first thing that I'm actually going to go to these cards first, because there's no particular order to these. For some people, I got very specifically as I laid those out, that some of you, the change is going to be that you will move from being sort of someone happy in who you are and so forth into, you know, a relationship, or if you're in a relationship, take that relationship to the next level, have children, that kind of thing. There is, for some of you, this difference has got something to do literally with children, but also with you being able to have that sort of, as I say, innocence and maturity to sort of move into that kind of role. For some of you, there is something like that coming in, definitely. And Spirit is saying that don't feel that it is taking strength away from you. It is diverting the strength. The strength that you had to be true to who you are is strength that you now divert towards the child, if that's the case. If that's not about children, it's maybe about a business or something material that you can commit to and that is true to your heart, but it may take a bit of effort to do it. That's if it's more material, it's something you're bringing into the world, it's something you're birthing into the world that's material. Spirit is saying watch your energy levels, because it's going to become a lot bigger, a lot more successful than you expect. And so you're going to need to conserve your strength if that's the case. Certainly up here, I think we're getting the energy of coming off whatever this change was. You are letting down some burdens and allowing yourself to be more free and innocent and moving forward and like happy with who you are. But there's some patterns, there's some nurturing patterns that you need to let go of, and you will let go of over this period of time. So it's possible that for some of you, your relationship with your parents or nurturing figures might have had to shift for you to own who you were. But you are letting go of the burden of that to be able to move forward. And if you are going to become a parent, it may be that this is saying that part of this new journey when you open up is in fact you letting go of a concept that being a nurturer is a burden. So it just depends. There's sort of like, I think, 2 different types of ways this is playing out. And for some of you who come here, it is because you're going to move into parenthood, that kind of thing, and that's the very different way of living, the big shift in how you do things over this next 3 years. But for others, if it's not around that, you're letting go of old nurturing burdens so that you can move forward. You're also letting go of old emotional hurts. And you're slowing down a bit on some of that. You've done a lot of work on it, a lot of work on that. You don't need, Spirit is saying you're not going to have to work so hard on what you emotionally care about because you've done that now. You can actually settle into some patterns. You don't need to rush out like the Knight of Swords at everything. And there's a very strong opportunity for a good love relationship to come in as a result of that, because you've done the work. So just allow that to flower, like I'm literally getting, because of the flower there, flowering that. So I think there is something around relationship. Some of you, it's going to move right into family, children and so forth. For others, a relationship is coming in this period. But I think that the big change, if there's a relationship but it's not sort of moving into, as I say, parenthood, is working out who you want to be in a material level on the world stage, and it's going to be bigger than you expect it to be. Okay, so let's ask what you may not see that could, derail you or distract you over this period of time. Okay. You are a creature of change and a creature of authenticity. That's what these first cards were saying. What may derail you is those that don't like change and that kind of slow it down. So there may be people, and this may be the sort of authority figures, nurturers around you, that try to say that you can't build a foundation that way, or that there's a foundation already, why you're changing things so much, take everything carefully, incrementally and so forth. It could also be within you that so much change has occurred that to change even more, to step out into the unknown, feels a bit scary. I think at the point where you could really turbocharge whatever you want to be and find this new thing, there may be a side of you that kind of likes to be bound by only small changes because of what you've done. There's a very big shift. I don't think that Spirit's going to tell us a lot about it, to be honest, because I feel in some decks you get a blank card and it's where something hasn't really formed yet, but it's coming in. I get that sense of this for you. But what could derail you is at the moment when you could shift into something very new, not wanting to make that much of a change in your life. Now, of course, and we will look at this, around what you might do if you don't really want to go to that. That may be part of the answer. If something really, a huge change is, you've changed to this degree and that opens up this whole other thing, but it feels a bit alien and new and too big a leap, then it could be Spirit sort of saying, well, you can derail it yourself by deciding to stay in what you've done so far. And of course, that's your choice. It's not saying it's anything bad. The Devil card doesn't mean it's bad. It's just binding yourself down to that which is rather than allowing the change to occur. Okay, so let's ask what Spirit's advice is to maximize the benefits of whatever this big but somewhat mysterious thing is for you. Just as I was laying those down, I also got to say that if this is about, as I say, a narrative of moving into parenthood, the thing that could derail you is you say my career and that sort of thing. It's going to have too much of an impact on that. So, we can't do that yet. And again, that's your choice if that's the case. What Spirit is saying in terms of maximizing the benefits is to study and learn about something new, because that may be the thing. It's sort of like maybe a new form of study. It doesn't have to be formal study, though you may go and do formal study of some sort, but learning something, building a skill and so forth is what's going to start to bring this big new opportunity in. And it releases you from some of the anxiety and feeling a bit stuck, like I'm here where I am now and I'm not, how can I change without losing that? We'll show you how to build. Also being a little bit more out in the world. So there's something about you that really has consolidated who you are, but to really maximize what you could do, you need to be a bit more out in the world, less contemplative, more in the world. Okay, so we're going to use the other deck now, and we're going to do a slightly different perspective. We're going to firstly ask Spirit's advice if you don't want one or more of these changes. As I say, you could read some of those cards as giving you some of that answer already. But let's see what else Spirit wants to say about if you didn't want to, if you feel, look, I'd worked so hard to get to here. I do not want to suddenly feel completely discombobulated in 3 years' time, or some period over the next 3 years, and be starting on something even new again. It was exhausting enough to get here. What would be Spirit's advice to course correct and not end up there? Okay, so there's something about this new thing, this is getting a bit clearer, that is about partnership, whether it's partnership with a lover or a business partner, people at work, whatever it might be. Spirit is saying that you could consolidate. You can, if you want, you can continue to consolidate with what you do and keep moving with what you do. But your choice has to be then to kind of do it on your own. And that's okay. I mean, you can do that if you want. But there's something in this where I think it's going to be more about partnership. Partnership in a family sense, partnership in a love sense, partnership in a business sense, or maybe all of the above. That's what's different. You have put so much work into becoming who you truly are that it is a little bit alien and strange to be then thinking, how do I become something in a partnership? How do I become something in a business? Because it's opening up the world to others. Spirit is saying you won't lose your momentum and what you're doing for yourself if you choose to do that, but it is a choice to be more on your own. It doesn't mean you have to have no love in your life, but I feel it's more material. Okay, so then let's ask, how will the external world impact on all these choices about what you're doing over the next 3 years? Okay. So it's interesting. I feel like the Three of Swords here is pain that is around you that you see. Because it's the external world, I don't think it's pain to you. I think you see pain around you in some way. So maybe there is something that created you being more true to yourself and being more comfortable in yourself. You see the pain of others who haven't done that, and there's a calling to you to do something, to come out of just doing it for yourself in a way. So the pain of others is impacting somehow. The loss of emotional opportunities is doing something. So if you make that choice, then you cut yourself off from love potentially. But I think it's also that you see others doing it. It's almost like you get forced into doing whatever this is. Don't you, as I say, Spirit says you don't have to, but you're kind of propelled to do it because you want to do for others what you've done for yourself. And the world requires a bargain to do that in some way. It requires something of you with the Seven of Swords. Plus also with the Seven of Swords, it can be duplicity. You may see things that are not authentic, and it kind of propels you anyway because you are a very authentic person. So it may be that there's something about the world which has pain and a loss of emotion and too much sort of negotiation in the not appropriate way that propels you towards doing this because you start to have a cause that you want to follow, something like that. All right, so let's look practically at this. We're going to use the Heart Code Oracles to look at now and 3 years from now for relationships, then for career, and then for lifestyle to see if we can get more information for you. So for relationships, now, love from beyond. Wow, okay. And connections. Yeah, I think there's a new love coming in, or family growth, or whatever it is. And love from beyond here at the moment suggests that part of you being able to do this comes from, sort of spirit team, ancestors, all that sort of thing. There is a lot of a spiritual team around you wanting you to be able to love yourself so that you can love others. That's kind of the energy here. So pay attention to that. You're probably a bit of a medium. And then connections, like they're coming out of being on your own. Again, Spirit says you can stay on your own if you want, but really for a relationship, it is about connection. And that will open up something very new. Very new. Okay, so let's have a look at career around the same sort of 2 time periods. So now, perseverance. So you've achieved certain things. You just need to keep on keeping on. This new opportunity is going to come up, but it's not here yet. It's sometime over the next 3 years. And around 3 years from now, disapproval. See, this is, I'm not sure. I mean, some people, some of your sort of like family or whatever may disapprove of what you're doing. That's possible in your career. You know, tough if that's the case would be what I would say. But I think it's more that there's something that you see, I think, and I think it will be around career for most of you, that makes you think, I have to do something more. It's almost like a disapproval of what you're seeing is what is propelling you towards the new. So, okay, let's have a look at lifestyle, how that's impacting over the 2 periods of time. So for now, we have message. Oh yeah, you're getting messages from beyond. Pay attention to synchronicity, pay attention to dreams, and pay attention to what people are giving you in terms of feedback about what you've achieved, because it's considerable. And then in terms of later, irritability. Yeah. I have to say, pile 3, not that it is bad, and Spirit has said you can always choose not to do this, but I think that there's something that's going to prod you into the new, or at least prod you towards considering the new within 3 years. And that's why we had the sort of Uranus energy right at the beginning. There's something that's remote, different, not seen, something that you don't expect. But on the other hand, if you can accept it, it brings you to greater connection. But it's like, I really do see you like somewhere in the next 3 years going, I had sorted that and now this, but it's got this sort of sense of like, yes, but that's so much more. And you're going to feel like you have to do it anyway, because you can see other people who have got stuck and you want to unstick them in some way. Okay, so let's have a look at what astrology energy is around you over the next 3 years. Pluto, yeah, there's the transformation, and it's remote as well too. Uranus is a remote planet, so is Pluto. And so is Neptune. Okay. Waning crescent, releasing control. There is, you know, you're going to be asked to release control in the 12th house about something that has a very deep impact. And I don't feel this is bad, but I do feel like you kind of think, oh, really? Do I want to take that up? But there's something very deep in you that's coming forward, and transformative and ideal and idealized, all of those sorts of things. So there's definitely a sense of something. It's energetically, to me, when I think of tarot, just to give you an allegory of this, I think of the reason that tarot works is it has a basic structure to it that is sort of like from the ace to the 10, and then the court cards and the court cards are kind of like people and energies like that, and then the major arcana is like the whole life process. So all of them have a structure to it and a kind of almost time frame to it. And as a result, a lot of what one picks up sort of with the collective is almost a telepathic energy about what's coming in and out. And when I talked about earlier that some decks have a blank card, and that sort of like, to me, is what is so far out that it's not yet seen, there's a lot of that for you. There is some, and Spirit won't, and I have tried so many times with people when I've used the blank card index to really work out what something is, but it's like the time isn't right. But you know, pretty much any time that's come up, 6 months later, 12 months later, the person has said, now I know what that was. But it's got to come into being. There's something that is really, you do not see it coming, but I don't think it's bad, but I just think it's sort of like when it starts to come through, you think, oh my goodness, that's so much bigger than I thought. Do I want to do this? And you may have a wish to kind of hide away and contemplate it. And Spirit is saying it's your choice whether you do it, but there is such potential in it. All right, so let's look at what affirmation Spirit wants to leave you with, this rather ambiguous and challenging, but nevertheless wonderful, I think, reading. A wonderful energy for you, I mean. So we have the root chakra, who you are at a base, who you really are, and the third eye. See, this is it too. That where you have been at the moment is about who you really are, and really, really defining that, you know, in a very real way, and having had success with that, then you're moving to connection, telepathic connection more generally. So the root chakra here with Garnet is about courage and hope. The affirmations are, I hope for the best in every situation, and I have the courage to evolve. And yes, you do. That's the thing I think Spirit wants you to remember. If this feels a little bit overwhelming, you, of all people, can do it. Then the third eye chakra has labradorite, transformation and synchronicity. I understand the significance of synchronicities. So yes, that's why you have to pay attention to the messages. They've worked for you so far. Don't distrust them. And I am always transforming spiritually. Yes, you're always transforming spiritually. You've brought something in this earth, in this earthy being that you are into being, but you are continuing to transform spiritually, and that's partly what's actually bringing this in. So I hope that you enjoyed that pile 3. It is a little bit of a challenging reading, as I say, but so much potential here, I think. I hope that it resonates for you, and if so, please like the video and subscribe, and if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So these cards are you now, and these cards are the sort of energy around you in 3 years' time of who you are. And they're hopefully to help make sure you come to the right reading, if it's particularly if the now sort of resonates, or where the future looks like, if it fits with something that you're sort of aiming towards. But it's also to give a sense of the transformation over the period of time, and what the differences might be. And you are going to, I think, over the next 3 years, in some way move into a position of leadership, power, because of the king energy here, or responsibility. You know, it could be you know, becoming a parent, and so it becomes sort of like protection. I always get a very big, strong sense of protection from this card with the king energy. It looks so protective with the imagery that's used. So it could be protection of others, family, friends, and so forth. Or it could be, with some of the other cards, as I say, a leader, or even somebody who takes up a political cause. I wouldn't be surprised if a few of the people here are political, partly because we've got the Democrat card here. This does not mean that you're a Democrat as opposed to a Republican in American politics. It's more about seeing democracy, fairness, justice as being important. And with those two together, it looks as though you move into some sort of a role. But as I say, it could be being a parent and bringing that energy to the family and to nurturing. It could be in a workplace. It could be in something you do creatively, or it could be in a political cause. I do think with some of you, it's in a political cause. So, but you're not quite there yet. You're kind of looking at it right now. And sorry if you hear that dog barking outside. If you look at these cards over here at the moment, you're very much in your mind. You're very clever, very funny, very faithful to what you do with Laertes here. It's a sort of a story of faithfulness for him, and like doing the work that needs to be done and being consistent and so forth. But with Uriel here with illumination, and that's connecting to Uranus, yes, so it's a slightly different way of doing the symbol for Uranus. So that's to do with illumination and the aha moment and inspiration. It comes through your mind and through wit. So you are someone who at this point in time deals with the powers of the world, with the issues emotionally around you or whatever, with a very light touch, with a sense of illuminating the truth through how you communicate it, through wit and in general how you communicate. Underneath it all, though, you're very faithful to what you believe. But I think most people at the moment would see more of the humour and not understand all of what was beneath that. But it's like that level of seeing things that people who are, say, comedians or something like that, there is a degree to which they are... I remember reading something that said that back in the day, the jester was actually more powerful often than the sort of prophets and those sort of people within the reign, because they could actually tell truth to power and so forth. So there's something in there where you're dealing with some of that now, but you do it with a very light touch in whatever way. And some of you may literally be comedians or do something, you know, like use humour in some way with what you do. Communication, definitely, but also potentially humour. But there is something that you really believe in, and you've become more and more illuminated about the difference between what you believe and what the world is showing you. This is why you've developed this sort of cause. And when you develop the cause, as you become more and more into it, you become more emotionally and psychically connected to it. So it's like at the moment you're a little bit detached. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you see the world, you can laugh at it, you can see all its absurdities. Something over the next 3 years is going to bring you much more into the realm of the emotions with the moon, with Gabriel and your intuition, and with Chiron, the wounded healer. So wanting to heal or fix something, and then that protective energy and that sense of justice. So I feel that you are moving from, as I say, a time where you see what's going on to a time when you care so much about it that you want to take a role in it. And as I say, it could be in a love relationship, it could be, you know, so moving from just having light, you know, dating, having fun, to moving to something that is really sacred and that you want to protect. Or it could be in a career, moving towards a more leadership role, or in a cause, moving towards actually trying to help other people and bring that sort of balance and appropriate power into play. So very interesting set of cards. Let's have a look with tarot about, firstly, 3 key themes over this period of time that will either maybe highlight more of this or maybe additional themes that are important over the next 3 years for you. So this is picking up the political social justice stuff. I might go to it first and then look at these because these aren't necessarily in any order. So I think that this is showing that over this period of time you get a really distinct sense of justice around resources, around support and so forth. And you see how much those who are not powerful have to be so careful with what they say or exhausted. I think many of you either may do a legal sort of role or you may move into politics, but the emphasis for you is how to give more energy and resources back to people who've lost it or who have been, on the streets or any of those sorts of things. This has a very social justice feeling to it. It very much feels like wanting to protect and build people up rather than having them sit in this sort of exhausted area and the intellect. You have the intellect. Certainly, if you were already a lawyer, then you're very light on your feet with what you say. You can bring humour in, you can bring illumination in and so forth, and you do have a faithfulness to the right cause. So that may be what this is talking about. But if it's into the political realm, then you are going to be around what is the right use of authority, money, resources, that sort of thing. If it's around a relationship, it may be that, and there is a bit of an indication here for some of you, that over this period of time there may be a relationship that you let go so that you can then go on to do whatever you've got to do, for whatever reason it's not working. And for some, it could involve a divorce, children, that sort of issue as well. So for some of you, it may be that you were more committed to something than you appeared, and it sort of starts to shift, and that makes you realise that you've got to more manifest who you are, either to resolve the issue so it doesn't end up in divorce, or potentially to say, okay, I've learnt my lesson with that. I'm now going to work out who I really want to be as somebody who's in a relationship or in a family. So there's definitely a potential around something like that. There's also the potential with these cards, Ten of Cups, Reverse Ace of Wands and Ace of Pentacles, that you don't, over the next 3 years, well, 2 things. Firstly, that you maybe put relationships and things like that a bit on hold, that your focus is more on whatever your cause is. And the warning here for you would be, are you actually cutting off some of your own blessings, both materially and also in terms of passion and love, if you did that? So there certainly is, the spirit here is saying to you that it is good to evolve into sort of something that takes all those skills that you have out there, but don't lose your own happiness in the process of doing it. It may also be that part of the cause is seeing where people are not being able to bring into being what they need to do, and families are being affected. Like, there's definitely a very strong political feeling about this for some of you. Some of you, you're really looking at the impact of economic policy and things like that on whether people can have families, whether they can really build anything for themselves, and major changes that may be occurring in the next few years in that space. But for others, this is more about you not losing that. So it depends on what resonates for you. Over here, it does suggest that you will do well over the next 3 years. You're going to do well on a material level. You're going to sort of, and it's your faithfulness, because the Queen of Pentacles has a sort of like sense of faithfulness and loyalty and so forth. You will see things through. If people think you're a bit light, in not sort of light as in intelligence, but that you're very kind of flighty or whatever, the reality is you will see things through, even if it partly exhausts you. And because you don't want to have emotional regrets about what you do. So underneath the wit is a very, very clear, strong sense of self and sense of values and all of that kind of thing, and loyalty to the right cause. But yeah, the thing for you, I think, with all of this together is either this is all being kind of externalized, like over the next 3 years you are taking on a cause that helps around economic and other inequality, that brings about sort of better outcomes for people using your very sharp mind to do that, that heals people, and that's fine. But there is also the risk that you put your own needs to the side a bit too much. And Chiron can do that, because instead of healing their own wounds, they kind of go out and heal the world's wounds. So that may be a little bit of a warning to you. So let's ask what you might not see that could be blocking you in some way. This is very much suggesting that your own emotional nature, you may not value it enough. Like, you may not value Cups energy enough anyway. You may, as I say, be very air oriented, and everything might be about the theory. So, but the wounded healer is also sometimes associated with the King of Cups. So the degree to which you are that, the degree to which you are healing the wounds of others rather than your own, and some of them could be quite long standing and be around love and so forth. Spirit is asking you to think about that. Not to not have the cause, because I think that that's a very beautiful cause to have, but not to do it to fill up an emotional gap in your own life. All right, so let's also ask how Spirit thinks you can maximize the benefits of moving into this sort of higher order social justice type of approach to life. Okay, Spirit is saying, firstly, find some good collaborators and partners. You don't have to do all this on your own. They're also saying that you will do it in an unconventional way. This is partly this jester. You don't have a lot of respect in some ways for the powers of the world, and you're probably not wrong. You can see that there is a better way of doing it, and you will be actually explaining and showing to the world something that is a different way of doing it. But you need a business plan or a longer term material plan, because at the moment it's all kind of looking at what is in the world is happening, poking fun at it if necessary, like pointing it out, illuminating what's wrong. But if you really want to maximize what you can do in the world, you need to plan a little bit more materially and show what is the alternative. It's not just enough to say, well, this is all wrong, because certainly on a political level, probably any of us could go, well, yeah, the world's screwed up. But you've actually got the potential to do something with it. But Spirit is saying, do a kind of business plan as much as anything else. So what we also wanted to ask with the other set of tarot cards is, if this isn't where you want to go, if you think, oh, look, I actually prefer to be in the light space, or I don't want to, I want to focus on my relationships or whatever, what can you do to course correct and take it in a different direction? Because we all have choice. This is just the most likely trajectory at the moment. So this is Spirit now. We're asking them, what could you do to end up slightly different, in a different timeline, or whatever term you want to use for it. Wow, this King of Cups keeps coming up, doesn't he? And Chiron. So Spirit is saying you need to look at that. What is the anxiety that you have at the moment around relationships, around emotional things? Why do you live in your head all the time? Is that a little bit of a protection? Because you can shift your life path with the sun to whatever you want it to be. The reason that this is a natural trajectory at this point in time is that you're theoretically moving to a larger scale. And there's nothing wrong with doing it if you want to do it. But if you don't and you want to shift it, you need to work out what is it within you, particularly emotionally, that this cause is filling up for you. What is it taking as a different way of doing things, so that you're not looking at your emotional stuff. So Spirit is definitely saying it's really in your hands. And it doesn't mean, you could fix up your sort of emotional stuff and understand it and still do something in the world. But it's like, if you don't want to just end up here And potentially with some of the other things where there might be losses in terms of emotional stuff, you need to work out what it is. What is this compensating for, I think, is the question. So then we're also going to ask how the external world is impacting. What's happening in the external world that is impacting on you over the next 3 years? Okay. So this is picking up very much the current trajectory we're talking about, if you haven't sort of shifted it. And it may even be even if you do, because you still probably will want to fight the demons, I think. There is a lot going on in the world at the moment that can't be trusted. That is maybe a bit of dark energy. There is a lot going on where decisions, the wrong decisions are being taken, or they're being taken precipitously, and it's particularly in the political realm and so forth. And there's something new being born in the world, probably politically, maybe also creatively, that doesn't have a firm foundation. So the thing is for you that there is a side of you that does, you're so strongly aligned to trying to make things right. And you can see it so clearly that that's where you're naturally propelled to. Because you can see if people like you don't get involved, we could end up with the wrong thing being born. That's the thing. You see that the stakes are really high. The one thing that Spirit is saying is that you could do that at a cost to yourself. So it maybe slow it down a bit. It's a bit hard to say. I think you're someone who, they say when you awaken, so to speak, it's like you can't not see it. You don't get innocence back. You know what I'm saying? Like once you've seen certain things, you can't unsee them. So I think that what's going on a macro level is very much impacting you, and possibly there is a question here about how you balance your own emotional nature and your own emotional life while still being part of this bigger cause. Okay, so let's get a little bit practical. Let's look with the Heart Code Oracles around relationships, then career, and then lifestyle over the next 3 years, looking at now and then. So now around relationships, connections. Yeah, connections are important. And at the moment, you're doing it primarily through your mind. But I think, as Spirit is saying, if you work out what it is that you're trying to fix emotionally, those connections can become richer and support you through, I think, what you're going to be drawn to do on one level or another anyway. Let's look at relationships 3 years from now. Decision. So if you have been putting relationships on the back burner in this period of time, something's going to happen around about 3 years from now. A key person's going to come into your life, or will have come in, say, in the preceding 12 months, where you need to make a decision. If you've been in a relationship, you've created the connections, then maybe there's a decision that both of you are making together, whether it's to go into sort of family sort of stuff, as I said, which could be part of this, or whether it is more around what do you do together, do you take it to the next level, etc. Okay, let's have a look at career. So career for now. Reduction. So that feels like you have reached a particular level and you're now looking at what doesn't work in the future. So you are preparing for something more, but there's almost like there's a process going on at the moment of getting back to first principles, which is not a bad thing to do at all. You may also be trying to reduce some of the hours that you work. If you're burning the candle at both ends, particularly mentally, which you could very well be with those original cards, then you may need, and you may be aware of, and you're trying to reduce some of your work hours so you can spend a little bit more time on your relationships. Okay, let's have a look at your career and where you are 3 years from now on this current trajectory, because, you could change the timing or whatever if you choose to do it. But on this current trajectory, frustration. Yeah, I do think that there's a balance that you'll need to bring in. And I do think that you'll be dealing with big issues. So it's not like 3 years from now you've won the battle. You're kind of in the middle of the battle. And it could be frustrating sometimes. I think that inevitably would be if that's the side that you're fighting on. Not that that is a reason not to do it, but just being aware and giving yourself and that might be part of the decision around the relationship. How much of yourself do you give to this compared to your relationships? So let's see lifestyle. At the moment, interaction. So yeah, you're not, and this is probably the sort of air energy, the fun, the light, whatever. You're not denying yourself interaction with others at the moment. So that's good. No matter how big this canvas gets for you, at the moment you are interacting with people. You're not isolating yourself, which is good. Where are you 3 years from now in terms of lifestyle? Solution. Okay. So you will find the solution to all of this, the balance and the decision, I think, around relationship. That's the point. And that will also be the solution to some of your frustration about the timing and so forth. This is why Spirit's saying all the anxiety is kind of caused by you, and you can also decide not to do it and focus on your life path and integrate things. It's really within your ability. And intellectually, you can work it all out. What you want to do for everybody else, which is bring things into balance, you can do it for yourself. And you can start to live it as a solution. All right, so let's have a look at some astrological energy for you over the next 3 years. Okay, 4th house. Yeah, so a lot of this is about who are you at home and what impact is this having on your home life. Pluto, big changes. You may move where you live quite a few times in this period of time, or transform the nature and the balance of who does what in the house. 5th house, yeah, there is likely to be romance in this period of time, and creativity. And trine. Okay, so that means something is going to be easier than you expect. So I'm going to deal out to see what planets are involved. But I would also say, just on a macro level, trine and Pluto turning up together, the change that you're going to do here is going to be easier than you would have expected it. And there is a way to balance love and your home with the change. So that's very good news. But let's see what planets are in trine. Uranus, so there we've got some more of the change energy around you. And the moon. So yes, you can change your emotional outlook, your sort of this wounded healer stuff. You can change it more easily than you expect. The other thing is that the moon moves very quickly in a chart. So you may have Uranus trine moon anyway. So that may be part of the thing, can help you emotionally shift and change. But if it's more transits over this period of time, pay attention to when the moon is in trine with your Uranus in your chart, because it may be at times where you have particular ease in finding the solution and moving things through. So you can, if you've got your chart, if you just look at ephemeris and see whenever it is in a trine aspect. So that's literally, if for instance you were a water sign moon, it would be every time the same degree, or say you had a water sign Uranus, then moon, every time that kind of was in a water sign in that same degree, then it would be trine. It's that kind of energy. So I think there might be around about 3 times a year where that you particularly can get some solutions over this period of time. Okay, so to finish off, let's use the Crystal Chakra card deck for just a couple of kind of affirmation energies that Spirit thinks would actually help you over this period of time. So we've got throat chakra, so it's about how you communicate. Throat chakra twice, it's how you communicate. That's the big thing here. Everything will come, and you are brilliant at that, remember, with all that air energy and the jester. That's going to be your real ace in the hand, so to speak. So the throat chakra with Angelite gives acceptance and wholeness. The affirmations are, I acknowledge the whole of my being. So yes, don't lose the emotional side, and I accept what I cannot change. So there is something here where you are going to be driven to some degree. Also, sometimes you will get frustrated because you can't change everything in the world politically or whatever the issue is. It takes time, or in fact there are some battles that are more about fighting the battle for the principle than it is about winning in them as such. You also have Chrysocolla, which is about self-awareness and comfort. So the affirmations for that are, I am comfortable with my true self. So yes, be comfortable with your true self. You come from a really lovely space, actually. And I am highly aware of what I say and do. Yes, you are. You're particularly what you say, but also I think increasingly also what you do. And marrying, you will be someone who walks the talk. You're not just going to be as I say, criticising and joking about something, you're going to actually take up in some form a role where you nurture, support, protect others, and where you show that it wasn't just wit and observation, it was something that you truly feel and something that you're truly faithful to. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 4. I hope it was helpful and you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.